So, let's say you've managed to achieve the Holy Grail. You've got that position, you've got through the interview, and you've been given an appointment. The question now is how to make yourself a good colleague, so that your colleagues will really like you, they will give you tenure, they will definitely want to hang on to you, and they will support you in your academic career. In a way, the answer to this question is that you should follow a kind of via media, a kind of middle way. There are certain things you should definitely do, but you should not really take them too far, because if you do, they'll be counterproductive to your ultimate goal. The first thing is that you should be social. You don't want to be the kind of colleague who locks themselves up in their room, never meets their colleagues for a cup of coffee or a beer, never has an informal chat with them. This will lead you to be regarded as a misanthrope, generally a miserable person, and not a pleasant person to have in the department. Also, more seriously, it will be very bad for you intellectually. An amazing amount of intellectual stimulation, intellectual development takes place through informal conversations, in social events, in the corridor and in occasions like that, as much as in formal academic events and things of that sort. So you'll actually be missing out on a lot of intellectual stimulation and development. On the other hand, you don't want to become a party hound. You do not want to engage in nothing but social events to the detriment of your academic work and scholarship. And so you have to know essentially when to say, thank you very much, nice for the invitation, but I need to go and get that paper written, I need to finish off writing up that coursework. And your colleagues will of course appreciate that. So a balance to be struck, but you shouldn't become a completely unsociable person. You should try to establish good, friendly, social relations with your colleagues. It will simply make your own life and job a lot easier. The second thing is that you should do your bit for the department. When you arrive in the department, you will become what in the Navy is known as George. In the US Navy, George is the most junior officer on the ship, the newbie, the one who's just been appointed. George is typically given all the jobs that nobody else on the ship wants to have, hence the standard naval expression, leave it to George. You do not want to be George. So you will find that all sorts of your senior colleagues will be suggesting that you might be the ideal person to sit on this or that academic committee, to head this or that research inquiry into how to change the administration of the courses. Firmly but politely decline most of these requests. They are going to interfere with you enormously, and above all, they will take away valuable time from what you really need to do, which is your writing, your research, and your work. On the other hand, do not simply refuse to do your part of the department's work. If you do that, your colleagues will form a pretty firm dislike for you very quickly. You should do some things. There are things you can do to help out the administration, the routine running of any large academic department, which will make you a highly valued colleague. Simply running basic course administration, for example, doing certain things on program administration. Being prepared to do a certain amount of this is very important, because it will make your colleagues think this is someone who's prepared to pitch in, pull their weight, and do the kind of jobs that are necessary but which nobody really wants to do. Just don't become a soft touch and allow people to take advantage of you. So once again, there's an important kind of balance, and essentially you have to realise that there's a trade-off between the time that you could otherwise be devoting to academic work and making your colleagues think well of you and appreciate your contribution to the department. And you'll develop, I think, a pretty clear judgment about where that balance actually lies as time goes by. In terms of how you want to establish yourself as a good academic colleague, the key thing really is to come to be known as a person who is interesting, who has got things going on, but also somebody with a very clear research identity. The main thing is to be thought of as having a definite, specific kind of area of expertise and interest, so that when your colleagues are asked by other people at conference or over coffee in the faculty lounge, oh, your new colleague, what do? They will not have to scratch their heads and think around. They will say, oh, he's working on 17th century France, or he's working on labour market economics, and he's exploring things like government controls in labour markets and how they hinder employment. Whatever it might be. The point is you should have a clear agenda, some kind of clear area of expertise and research, which will become a part of your identity as a member of the department, so you become the person that other people, either in your department or elsewhere, will go to if there's a question that arises about that kind of topic. Do not come across as being either too narrowly focused on one very narrow topic, and even more importantly, do not come across as being a jack of all trades. That's not going to impress people in the academic world. It may be fun to be somebody who has interest in a whole enormously wide range of subjects, but you should actually keep some of that a bit concealed from your colleagues, because if they get the impression that you're a jackdaw who simply picks a bit from here and a bit from there, they will come across, or they will come to the conclusion rather, that you're not really a serious scholar, and you don't want to include that. One obvious question is whether or not you should conceal your political or ideological views. Should you conceal the fact that you are a classical liberal, libertarian, whatever you want to call it? The answer to that is that you should definitely not conceal it. Not only is this dishonest, you aren't going to succeed. You will inevitably say something or react a certain way that will reveal to anybody who has any ounce of sense where you're coming from, broadly defined. And to the extent that you are able to conceal your views, it will be spiritually and mentally very destructive for you. So don't do that. On the other hand, you don't want to go and actually force your views on other people. It's simply a matter of being a reasonable person. If you're asked a question and it has a definite kind of response from you in terms of your beliefs, then say what you think. But do so in a non-aggressive, non-threatening way. Make it clear that this is your view, but that you respect and are prepared to engage in argument with people who hold different views on this particular topics. You'll find that if you do this, even people who disagree with you very strongly in terms of your political philosophy will respect you. They may think you're completely wrong about this, but they're not going to think that you're a bad person, and that's the way you want to be. So my strong advice would be not to conceal your views, but then on the other hand, not necessarily to try and proselytise. So simply make it clear what your views are, and if you're asked, articulate your views in a reasonable and polite way. And if you do that, I don't think you can go far.